You know, but to me, the biggest example of that is Nurmagomedov's wrestling. Khabib takes
oh my God
everybody who's good. Rafael dos Anjos, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt world champion, ragdolls them, ragdolls everybody. Michael Johnson. I mean, no matter who he fights,
he ragdolled this guy in the beginning, and I thought it was over right away. I was like, oh, this is over. But Iaquinta did really well.
Did very well, very well. The thing about Iaquinta is he's a legit crazy person. Like that guy's crazy. He trashes hotel rooms. He's like, you look in his eyes, you're like, oh, there's only like
he's the guy.
There's only like a couple people home. Like, it's not a full village in that head. That's not a good example, but what I'm saying is like he's a legit maniac and he's not scared. Like he'll fight anybody.
Yeah.
Like you could wake him up at 3 o'clock in the morning and he'll fight anybody.
Being crazy is a thing.
He was screaming. He was running around the hotel lobby the day when we found out that Max Holloway could not make weight. And by the way, I shouldn't say could not make weight. I believe Max would have made the weight.
They
the
didn't
New
let
York
him.
State Athletic Commission, which they made some big errors, and I can go into detail with a couple of them. One of them is they wouldn't let Paul Felder fight. Paul Felder wanted to fight. They said he's not ranked. Paul Felder is a fucking killer. He is a straight up killer. And him versus Khabib would have been a very interesting fight because Paul is a big 155. He's very big and very strong, and he is an expert world-class striker. I mean, Paul Felder is a dangerous, dangerous man for anybody at 155 pounds. And he's a ground and pound expert. He's also got very good defense in everything. Very good defense standing up, very good defense on the ground. I mean, Felder's fucking well-rounded. I would have been very intrigued in that fight. And they offered it to Felder. Felder said, fuck yeah. And then the New York State Athletic Commission said no.
Said no, yeah.
I was like, you guys are out of your fucking minds. You don't know shit about fighting if you don't think that guy could fight for the title. Because Paul might be fighting for the title in a year from now or whenever. I mean, he's fucking world class. So the fact that they don't know that and they're saying, well, based on the rankings. Well, the rankings are horse shit.
Yeah,
they're arbitrary. They're made
up
by a bunch of people that I think a lot of times are biased. They have terrible judgment. Sometimes a guy will fuck a guy up and then you look at the rankings and he's below that guy he just fucked up in the rankings.
Yeah,
Explain that. There's no other way to tell if a guy's better than who he fucked up. And they're saying, well, his past experience. Suck fat dicks. That past experience doesn't mean anything.
This guy just beat this guy.
The guy beat the guy. Who beat the guy? That guy beat him? Well, if he was number one, now he's number one. That's how it goes. You can't get knocked out and still be number one. That's fucking bananas. And this is often the case where you see a guy beat a guy and he's still below the guy in the rank. He's like, what the fuck else can he do?
How did they end up
beat the guy?
How did they end up getting Iaquinta then?
They just asked him.
He was the next guy in line.
He's on a 4 or 5 fight win streak. And he's beaten some very good guys like Jorge Masvidal, Ross Pearson. He's beaten some legit guys. I mean, look, Iaquinta can bang, and he's tough as shit, and he's got a wrestling background, which I think played a big factor in that fight. Obviously, he was greatly outclassed by a guy who I think is one of the greatest lightweights of all time. And now that he's the champion, I'm very interested in seeing. But I think what we saw in that fight that was very intriguing was the fact that Iaquinta was able to get back up. And that Iaquinta was one of the few guys that Nurmagomedov has ever fought that has stuffed a bunch of takedowns and then into the late rounds. And this is a guy in Al that didn't even prepare for a 5-round fight.
Yeah.
He was getting ready for a 3-round fight with Paul Felder. So, I mean, fucking props to Al Iaquinta. I mean, fucking animal.
Yeah, great job. That was awesome.
Animal. And major props to that Kyle Bochniak kid that fought Zabit. That kid's fucking savage. Because he ate everything.
He was smiling, getting punched in the face.
Smiling and coming on at the end of the fight. The end of 3 rounds of a clinic. I mean, Zabit put on a clinic. He did everything. Jump spinning back kicks, roundhouse kicks, switch kicks. He hit him with a switch kick that was like, Jesus. Bochniak took a couple to the neck, whack, and still kept coming. Still kept coming. Blood coming out of his nose, his mouth. He's screaming at him, sticking his tongue out on him.
Shit.
And then Zabit is like, what the fuck do I got to do to this guy?
Yeah.
And at the end of it, Bochniak's got him pinned up against the cage and he's throwing bombs. It was crazy. The whole place, the entire Barclays Center on their feet
you
at
were
the end
going
of that
nuts.
fight. Fuck, I stood up.
Pumped.
I stood up and I was screaming and clapping. It was
awesome.
phenomenal. Phenomenal. That's what I love, you know, and that was, in my mind, that was worth the price of admission for the whole pay-per-view card, just to see that.
That was the best fight, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But to see Al do that just shows you that, you know, Al is a legit world-class fighter. I mean, definitely is not on the level of Khabib, but nobody thought he was coming in. I think it in a lot of ways an upset, just the fact that he was able to go to the distance. And you see what Khabib did to so many other fighters. I mean, he mauled everybody else. And he mauled Al for a lot of the fight. I mean, look, the guy's the best wrestler at 155 ever. I mean, ever. He does things to world-class guys that makes you just confused.